This video was made with support from the National Lottery Heritage Fund. Welcome to this special edition of the Heritage Channel, celebrating the success of local projects here in North East Lincolnshire, thanks to support from the people who play the National Lottery. In 2021, a new initiative by the National Lottery Heritage Fund in partnership with North East Lincolnshire Council established a £250,000 fund to support local organisations develop ambitious ideas for heritage projects that have the scope and scale to provide a lasting legacy of cultural, environmental and architectural importance.
Starter Fund in North East Lincolnshire has been a really important project. We've been really able to reach small community groups with smaller projects that ordinarily we wouldn't necessarily have been able to fund.
We've got so many grassroots ideas amongst the town, within the town, but maybe people with perhaps not that confidence to be able to go out and put in funding bids themselves, so they need that kind of foundation, that opportunity to do so.
Some of them were very small amounts of funding, which is more difficult for people to obtain from us, and others just wouldn't necessarily know of us or our processes or be able to access those. So with support from people who really do know and understand the local context and the local community groups, we feel that we've been able to really fund things that matter to local people.
A network of people and organisations involved in local heritage was established by Heritage Lincolnshire to share ideas and good practice.
We are a county-based heritage charity, and primarily we're looking to engage people in the heritage and history and understanding of the amazing county of Lincolnshire. We fortunately have a background in developing heritage networks, so we got approached by North East Lincolnshire Council as to whether or not we'd be interested in doing similar work within North East Lincolnshire and helping to really establish a network to really help those groups engage with each other and with the wider process of their heritage funding.
A pilot series for the Heritage Channel contributed to the success of the programme by encouraging applications for funding and engaging the wider community in heritage issues. In March 2023, network members gathered together with the North East Lincolnshire Council team and representatives from the National Lottery Heritage Fund to celebrate the success of the Starter Fund programme and showcase the diverse range of projects that had benefited from funding.
We've been really pleased with the amount of projects that have come forward, all sorts of different ideas and areas of heritage to explore.
Many great people have contributed to the heritage of our coastal community, including railway magnate Sir Edward Watkins. Heritage Lincolnshire partnered with the Edward Watkins Society to explore the remarkable legacy of this Victorian pioneer and businessman.
He was Sir Edward William Watkin. He was an MP for 35-40 years. He was one of the best known people in Victorian Britain and strangely forgotten. Strangely because of the amazing things that he did and also the amazing things that he failed to do. He developed the railway for Grimsby and Cleethorpes, and he laid the foundations of Grimsby becoming what it became in the 20th century, as you know, the largest fishing port in the whole world. So it isn't an exaggeration to say that he really created modern Grimsby. I contacted Gail Graham, who works for Heritage Lincolnshire, and I was asking, could we, the Watkin Society, come into some local schools and develop a passion or an interest, at least create something in Edward Watkin. And it just so happened that Gail was wanting to do something through the Starter Fund. And so a project, this 18 months ago, a project was developed in 2 schools. The young people were so excited with it and the staff at the school that there's now been an application for an even more ambitious project, and that is due to start towards the end of the year.
The Humberston Fitties is the last remaining plotlands of its kind in the country, a place whose unique social, cultural, architectural and environmental heritage is now at risk.
People just think it's like a little collection of quirky wooden buildings, but it's a really important piece of social history as well. It started off at the turn of the 20th century when people would bring materials down to that bit of the beach to make themselves like little holiday homes, and then requisitioned army materials, and then it just grew out of that.
We've always gone through lots of changes, just right from the initial shacks being built and moved on. And for me, the key thing at the moment is trying to maintain some elements of the heritage and the quirkiness of the chalets without them being overdeveloped. Since lockdown, with so many people walking through, and you can see them walk through and they go, wow, what is this? And there's nothing, there's no clue. And to be able to tell that story as to how it's evolved. I mean, the history behind local people who used to have a chalet, a bungalow, and spend all summer there, and then just the workers would cycle down the seawall to work on the fish docks and come back at tea time, and the children will play on the beach, and the wives would all cook massive dinners together, and they'd have a big cookout. Just that whole social element of families being able to access this beautiful coastline that we've got from areas that were quite deprived at the time, really. There's always been conflict between different organisations and what people want from it, really. And I think for us it's about, let's remember just where it came from, what it is, how we can preserve. So rather than we're seeing a lot of developments and stuff, so some of the original really old chalets, rather than being destroyed and pulled down, but actually renovated in keeping with what they are. So we're preserving some of that. The new developments are great, it's good that places change, but it'd be a real shame to lose everything. We had comments from people all over the world who just love the Fitties and have got fond memories of it, and it's trying to sort of preserve some of that, those memories of that, and try and keep the simplicity of it, isn't it? Not overcomplicating. You go down there, you go on the beach, you get samphire, cockles, the salt marsh is beautiful. It's just a real simplistic life, really.
The outstanding collection of historic boats, cars and motorbikes owned by local enthusiast Mal Nicholson was showcased in Tea with Spider, a project run by the Historic Motor and Sail CIC.
There are two ships, the Spider Tea and HMS Pickle. There's a load of maritime artefacts. There are sports and racing cars, motorcycles, artworks. I still continue to own the collection, but the CIC brings the collection to a wider audience. The starter fund was very helpful. It essentially gave us a lead-in with Tea for Spider Tea, which we did a variety of projects, one of which I'm holding here, which is a schools package. And this was for 9 to 11-year-olds, and it's gone into the local schools. And it's borne fruit, because now we're working with the schools and doing all sorts of other things.
In capturing Cleethorpes cultures, Capacity Buildings Limited partnered with the Caxton Theatre, Cleethorpes Band and Hammond House Productions to celebrate Cleethorpes Charter Day by recreating the event in 1936 when Cleethorpes received its royal charter from King Edward VIII.
Oh yay, oh yay, oh yay! We are here today to celebrate the granting of a Charter of Incorporation by His Royal Highness King George V to make the urban district of Cleethorpes a municipal borough. please welcome the Lord Lieutenant of Nottinghamshire, Lord Heneage, who has travelled here today bearing the King's Charter.
It is with great honour that I bring this charter from His Majesty King George V to the people of Cleethorpes, and announce that henceforth the town of Cleethorpes shall hereafter be known as the municipal borough of Cleethorpes.
Other projects that received Heritage Starter funding included Documenting My Ability by Foresight in partnership with the WEA, Untold Stories and Memories of the West Marsh by the West Marsh Development Trust, and a wildlife project to survey the birds of North East Lincolnshire by the Lincolnshire Bird Club.
The fund has been absolutely precious to us because it's enabled us to produce a little booklet, The Birds of North East Lincolnshire, Past and Present. It was very important, and not just financially, but also because it gave us a certain confidence boost that we were doing something that people valued. That was quite important to us. People are very keen. They'd like to talk about their own experiences with birds, their families, and their predecessors. So it brought in new knowledge, and that's very welcome.
After the break, the Mariners are thriving and the Vikings are coming. But first, the Culture House celebrate the legacy of one of Cleethorpes' most famous sons.
It's close to midnight.
Why not? Can you take us seriously? Well, we're going to be celebrating the legend that is Rod Temperton, known in the music industry as the Invisible Man. This is because he was very much behind scenes, but he was the writer of one of the biggest selling singles of all time, which is Michael Jackson's Thriller, and lots of other songs that people would recognise from the 70s and early 80s.
The Heritage Starter Fund was extremely important because it allowed us to have that time to actually research and develop the project. So we've been spending a lot of time, haven't we, working with local creatives and students to actually devise this project, survey people, find out what it is that people want, and delve into, actually do some research training ourselves. We are going to be looking at a celebration of his music with live performance. We're working in partnership as well with Freestyle Academy, so we're looking to actually go into schools and do some music development, songwriting, music production, remixes. So
Cleethorpes was also a brilliant place for music in the 70s, so we're looking to create an immersive experience that celebrates his music and everybody can have a bit of fun, get dressed up, so that'll have elements to it, working with different partners to produce that as well.
Coming up in this special edition of the Heritage Channel, showcasing the history of the mighty Mariners and celebrating a great British culinary tradition. But first, a project that aims to secure the future of Wilsby Hall, one of our region's hidden gems.
Well, the Heritage Starter Fund made a really big difference in helping to plug some of the gaps in the project development process.
We used the money to help tell a story really, and get a video to tell a story about the estate, and for us to understand what was important to the people who use it now, but also potential people who might use it. We use some of the money to get some financial advice to make us as VAT efficient as possible, and some money to do an ecology study of the site.
So for the next steps for Linkage is we've actually put in an application to the National Lottery Heritage Fund for a grant to deliver the vision for Wilsby Hall, which will see the grand hall itself refurbished and brought back into use, and some outbuildings also brought back into use for Linkage clients in the future. So Wilsby Hall has generated a huge amount of interest. A few years ago we started running Heritage Open Days.
The first time we had about 100 people turn up. We decided this time, we'll stretch it a little bit. We had 400 people turn up, which is amazing.
As the Mariners' remarkable run in the FA Cup continues, there couldn't be a better time for the Grimsby Town Sports and Education Trust to celebrate the club's history with an exhibition of photographs and memorabilia. Further funding from the National Lottery Heritage Fund has helped to broaden the scope and scale of the project, and we will be covering their story on the Heritage Channel later in the year. Our Big Picture is another community organisation that has secured further funding following a successful Starter Fund project that told the Grimsby chapter in the story of that great British culinary tradition, fish and chips.
For the Starter Fund to help us with some research around a project around Great British fish and chips, working with two artists in London, a writer in London and a graphic novelist and reportage artist in London. It's all about getting a first part of a book started, so it's a graphic novel, and the first part is the Grimsby chapter. So it's actually enabling us to go out and make the right connections and do some initial interviews and research around making the Grimsby chapter a reality.
Thanks to support from the National Lottery Heritage Fund, Our Big Picture have now moved to their new location within the curtilage of Grimsby Minster.
We have documentation that places it in 1727 on the purchase of it by William Elwood. He buys the building with John Hannah. John Hannah actually dies, and so it is under the William Elwood's family, and it stays in the family until the 1950s. We've got our young people that we're working with through our Imaginarium. We've got young artists coming through, young producers coming through. We're building collaborations. It's really given us that space to be able to try things and test things.
In other Starter Fund projects, the Grimbarian CIC celebrate the people of the RNLI. Welcome Works have been restoring our street pride, and in We Are the Docks, writer Rosanna McGlone has been working alongside the Pastures Development Company to capture stories from our fishing heritage.
So I spent a lot of time interviewing fishermen, lampers, some of whom were 90 years old, and they told me their stories about what life was like back in the day, in the heyday of the docks. And then I had a whole team of community transcribers who transcribed all of these interviews for me. I went through all of those words, identifying different themes, having a look at how that might be constructed into a play, and then put on a play at Giffey and also at Freeman Street Market, so that it was within the heart of the community. Oh, the Starter Fund was incredibly important. I wouldn't have been able to spend the amount of time that I did on the project without that support.
East Marsh CIC have been exploring the fascinating stories behind our street names, and Councillor Steve Besant, Mayor of Grimsby, will be revealing what they discovered in a programme later this year. A remarkable collection of photographs taken by Steve Thornton was the subject of a project by the Pasture Development Company, documenting the dramatic changes in the once thriving Grimsby fish docks.
The Heritage Starter project helped revive a photographic project I did in 88, 89 and 90. I had that body of work as an archive, and what the fund helped with was revive that archive and produce some photographs in 2020, 21, 22, those photographs, and put together an exhibition and a book to show the history of like 30 years of the life of Grimsby fish stocks. People that came were emotionally like Some of them were upset, some cried, some saw old friends, some saw the granddads, and some said, I'm so glad this has been documented at last. We've got an archive of pictures of what it was like and what it is now, what it is like now, because the transition is huge.
Exploring the fascinating legend of our Viking heritage, the stories of Grim, Havelock and Goldborough paved the way for Heritage Lincolnshire, in partnership with VSER-CIC, to secure funding from the National Lottery for a series of events celebrating our Viking heritage, including the spectacular Grim Fellfest held in September.
We're so excited, and it's great seeing people already gather around, ready to see Grim and his Vikings arrive tonight.
When we're here in North East Lincolnshire, we are in Viking Age England. So this celebrates all of that culture and heritage that Grimsby is so strongly tied to.
The members of the public can come around and they can see everything from blacksmithing to candle making, making bread and even cheese.
The families can walk around, there's loads of free activities for children, you can meet the Vikings.
Well, we've come to Grimsby to teach you all about your heritage, because Grimsby is a wonderful place and it was born on a Viking backbone.
It's nice to show the kids kind of who their ancestors were.
People need to know where we've come from. If Grimsby's based on Vikings and Viking settlements, why haven't we done something sooner about it?
It's just nice to see where Grimsby originated from.
The main thing is that Grimsby itself feels proud about itself.
People don't seem to notice Grimsby a lot, but a reenactment like this brings us back on the map, so to speak.
Yeah, I think it's great. Done a really good job.
It's just a great event. We didn't know what to expect tonight, but obviously the people of Grimsby came out. Everyone's enjoying it.
Should be an annual tradition. Starting today.
It just makes you proud to be from Grimsby, in all honesty.
The Heritage Channel has also been successful in securing funding from the National Lottery Heritage Fund that will allow us to help community organisations, schools and colleges document and showcase their heritage projects, and to continue producing and broadcasting our feature documentaries and popular monthly programmes for a further 3 years. If you have a heritage story you would like to share or find out more about joining the Heritage Channel team, email news@heritage-channel.org. From everyone on the Heritage Channel and the Heritage Starter Fund projects, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next month when we explore the work of Grimsby Civic Society and the history of the Mighty Mariners.
When you look around the room, there's some great projects. And to be honest, it's very important, like I say, to preserve that heritage.
Yeah, you can sort of measure numbers and say how many people visited things and how many people are engaged, great. But it's like kind of the qualitative stories that have come from this, those memories that have been shared.
Heritage Fund are really, really pleased about what we've done, the levels of engagement that there's been, the additional money coming into North East Lincolnshire, and lots of different people getting involved in different ways.
We feel that we've been able to really fund things that matter to local people, and for local people to really be able to celebrate their own heritage through these projects.
The programmes on the Heritage Channel are made with support from the National Lottery Heritage Fund.